Hello, Faith Community family. Brian here, and I just want to take you a little bit further from the message on Sunday this week. We've been taking some time from various people in our church and some of our leadership to just talk about some practical steps to take the Sunday messages beyond just Sunday mornings. And if you've been with us, we've been in our Sunday School Stories series, and it's been such an amazing journey listening to some of the stories that we went through. And this past week, we talked about the Tower of Babel, which was the story that you voted you wanted to hear, which was surprising, as I think it's a story that often gets kind of confusing, and we look at it and we can wonder why God chose to do what he did in disrupting the languages of the people and scattering them. But it was all in purpose to fulfill the command that he had given them to be fruitful and prosper and to fill the land. And I would encourage you to go to YouTube and just take a listen to the message, as Pastor Josh did a great job talking about it. And he really pointed out three key points from the story: that there was a distrust, a disobedience, and a disruption. And I want to dive into the disruption point because I think so often that relates to our lives. I think all three of those, the distrust, the disobedience, and the disruption, they all come together often. But that disruption, sometimes we can often look at that as probably the biggest negative in our lives, because really, who likes to be disrupted, right? When you're in the midst, or you feel like you're in a groove, in a rhythm of life, and this disruption comes, it can really throw chaos off. And as we learned in the story, really, at times, God uses the disruption to really draw a focus to us, to bring us back to the calling and purpose that he has for us. And I think sometimes if we're not careful, we'll miss what God wants to do, and we miss that God is faithful in the midst of our distrust of him and our disobedience to him. And I would just ask, maybe you could comment below in the comment section just where you're at. Maybe you're in a season where you're just in discomfort and a little bit of, just not knowing what steps to take. Maybe there is some confusion in the direction that you're to go. Maybe you're walking through something that's immensely challenging, or maybe you just came out of that season and you're really riding it high and you can share the stories of God's faithfulness. But I think oftentimes when we are faced with the disruption, we have to choose how we're going to approach that. And I think too often, if I'm honest, I choose to approach them and I get super frustrated with them, and I try and take the disruption into my own hands, and often at times begin to try and set out my own plans, do things that I think are going to move me past that. And I never step back and really process, or maybe pray and ask God, hey, what is this disruption in my life really meant to be? Because again, I don't believe God's a God that wants to see us suffer, but I think God is a God that often brings disruptions into our lives to refocus us, to recenter us. And if we choose to look to him and go after him and chase after what it is he wants, we can see those disruptions for what they really are. And even moments of recentering, refocusing, or getting our vision clearly back to him. And so I would challenge you this week. Maybe you're looking around. Maybe you're in the midst of a disruption. Maybe you're in the midst of a season where you feel like, hey, I need to do this on my own. And God's really trying to draw you in, to focus you in to a point where you can really rely and depend on him and see the faithfulness of God. Because I've often found that when I try and do things, especially in those seasons, in and of myself, it's because I don't trust that God's really going to do what he says he's going to do. And often God proves me wrong. He always shows up, even when I don't give him the space to do it. He finds a way to meet me right where I'm at. And often those moments of disruption become a product of his grace and mercy to really show me that no matter where I'm at in life, he's with me. He's walking through the journey with me. He hasn't left me or forsaken me. And so I would encourage you this week, as you go back and listen to the message, to really hear the heart behind what God is doing in the story of the Tower of Babel. And that really he wasn't just trying to cause disruption for the sake of disruption, but he was causing that disruption in the people's lives so that they would see their need to be dependent on God and be reminded of his faithfulness, even in a season of disarray, even in a season where they're not really sure what God's going to do next. but they can see that they can trust him. And I know if you read that story, which it's found in Genesis chapter 11, right at the beginning there, it can seem very out of place and very chaotic. But the beauty of it is when you read it in context and you see all along God's whole goal was to help his people remain on purpose. And so again, I would encourage you this week as you walk through, if you're in that season of disruption, or you may find some disruptions in your life, take some time, pray, and ask God. Maybe he's trying to use this disruption to refocus you, to recenter you on his purpose. I hope you have a great week, and I'm praying that even in the midst of disruption, you'll see the faithfulness of God. Love you and can't wait to see you on Sunday.